I've made it. Hey, Donna.
Hey, John, this is Tony.
Hey, Tony. Hey, you, brother.
Good, man. You hanging in there?
Yeah, pretty much.
Good. Good.
Interesting times.
Yeah, I'll say. I will say.
Are they paying any attention to us?
Not at this point.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. I'm used to not being paid attention to.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yes, ma'am. So to kind of just start with the September, we are in good shape as far as enrollment in our first 15-day report. We were over our target by 4 students. So I know we've had a lot of technical issues, but that is a fun, great thing. So we're in good shape with our budget and a little over in case we have any movement. Our wait list is very strong. We have 222 students in our wait list. We did bring in a few more juniors even a couple of days ago, about a week ago. And did some just messaging on social media and we're able to get a few more just because we had exhausted the wait list. So our numbers are looking in good shape. Open enrollment for the incoming freshman class for next year started today. So that went up live on our website. We typically have almost over 300 students apply for about 140 spots. Due to COVID, we are not doing tours at this time. We did a video, which it was truly a team effort that our film class teacher let us borrow a camcorder and we went and interviewed each of our administrators in different spots in the building. And it's a homemade video. We didn't want to do a professional video with mask on. So we do want to do that later. But it's just to kind of show people different ways around the school until we can do a tour. And so our hope is that we can allow that to happen when this is over. It's going to be on the website. So instead of doing the tours, that's what we're doing for now. And doing a lot of social media and things, trying to show off the school since we can't bring students in to see the school. Couple other things development wise, we have postponed the Blazer barbecue. I'm hoping for the spring We do have and have been watching some things on virtual events. I do not think that would be a good thing at GMC just because that's a great way to connect our parents but we will do what we need to. So we're just going to postpone that in hopes that we can do a regular silent auction and event in the spring. We're trying to do some different things fundraising wise because it looks very different. We've done our obviously athletic sponsorships and got those out early. Those tend to be going well thanks to, I know our board's very supportive and you can kind of see the signs that we've put out. We've done a couple donation pages, trying to do a little bit more, I call it transactional fundraising when you're selling things. I don't love that kind of fundraising, but when it comes to kind of what we're in right now, that's kind of one of the things we've kind of been able to put back on the table and kind of donation pages. From the Parents and Partnership Committee, they approved their budget at the August meeting and the leadership. Things are running as smoothly as they can be given that sales are down. So we're going into a negative budget knowing that there is a reserve enough to do that just because we're selling, half as much as we were before. And that's okay. So we're just adjusting for that and we'll deal. We're doing some different things as far as the different committees because COVID makes that different. So box lunches, we can't make brownies like we could at home before. So definitely having to rethink all this and just preparing for upcoming student-led conferences and some of the things the school has going on. Any questions for me?
Heather, this is Tony. I assume you're probably doing this already, but to the extent that you had mechanisms to keep in contact with parents.
And that's something that admin talked about even in our meeting today was they'll give them parents both options and it can always resort back to virtual if it needs to. The hope, I believe, and correct me, Mr. Crawford, is that we'll give them an option given that our numbers don't change with COVID. Okay.
But are you, communicating differently with families and such?
Good. Appreciate everyone being with us tonight. And a few things we need to cover to start off with is COVID and ramping up our numbers and our plan. We currently have over 300 students back out of the 504. Most of them are having academic problems, meaning failing classes, and we thought it was urgent to get them in first, look at who had academic need and learning disabilities and others we've identified. And hopefully in the next few weeks, we're going to be ramping up. And I've asked James to come in and give him a chance to share some information with you and talk a little bit about our plan as he's headed up our committee with our school staff and our nurse. Okay.
I need to stand closer
Right here.
to the
You just sit
computer,
right
right? Okay.
Yeah, take here.
Tony has a question.
I did. Can y'all not hear me?
Just wanted me to go over our reentry plan as we move to phase 2. And we started last week with, like you mentioned, some students with academic need and or accommodation plans. And we brought in about 44 or so students last week, moved them from the 50-50 2 days a week to the 4 days a week plan. And this week we did about 30. We added about 32 more students. We plan to add 20 to 40 students each week. In addition to next week adding face-to-face after-school office hours like we're accustomed to do here at GMC. The following week, we will add the Smart Center every day, possibly Math Center or Writing Center if we can find the appropriate space and teacher. But each week we'll add those. And then on October 19th, we plan to bring everyone back 4 days a week. And as we phased in, it really shouldn't be that big of a jump on October 19th. And throughout this time, we will continue to offer the state required online only option for those families that continue to choose to not come to the school at all. So October 19th was chosen partly because that gives us 2 weeks until fall break. In the event there is something we need to do, change, adjust, we'll have a little extra, even though it's off time, it'll give us a little extra time to do that 2 weeks into phase 2. So, and then we reevaluate this every other week, but basically we reevaluate this every day. So But that's where we stand now through the month of October. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fred, before we continue, I think Tony has a question. Tony, would you
Okay.
like to ask something?
Can you
Put
hear
it
me
in the
now?
chat, or I can't hear him. Maybe I can, let me see if I can do this with my speakers. All right, Tony.
All right, my question was for Heather, just to know, can y'all hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Knowing that she normally had access to parents, you know, that she doesn't now, are you guys, or is she in particular reaching out to parents just to stay connected in different ways, whether it's through more frequent emails or some town hall or something like that?
We are, it's very different. We've tried to do parent meetings like this where we engage with them. We've tried to do some more communication. We still are having parents come in very minimally, like to help at lunch and things that have to continue happening with the temperature checks and all things. So there's still things we're doing. I mean, even with open enrollment, we're giving them opportunities like go put yard signs out and things to kind of engage them in the school. It has been challenging, so I don't know that it's as much as always, but there are things like that that we're doing to try to engage them and kind of change their service opportunities a little bit.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thought about, we're all having to do it, and it's terrible to try to keep people engaged. Are you using text or Google Chat maybe to engage the parents and phone calling as well?
That's a great idea. We have not used Google Chat and text as much. We have used kind of the phone system within our Power School and some of those things that are messengers within some of the programs we have. We've also done probably more social media than we have in the past, just trying to get the word
And you did
out.
your virtual parent meeting too.
Yes.
And that's recorded so they can come back and see it.
So, and we've had more engagement. Like we had a huge, turnout for that. We have 140-ish freshmen and we had over 170 people on the
Right at
call.
170 actually
That
participated.
was
So,
definitely the biggest turnout for a parent meeting we've had.
and we've sent it out to our employees and all of our lists to let folks know. And I really stress, because it never fails. When you have a lottery, there's somebody who just misses the deadline. And if you don't get in it, you're not going to have a ticket. Even if you're on the wait list, if you come in afterwards, you get the last number. So you can't stress enough, if you know anybody out there that might be interested in the school, that they contact us and again, get their application in.
Right. I just suggest the texting.
Mhm.
I found that a lot of parents don't have to do that.
Can't really hear what Donna's saying.
Right,
But just a quick text, GMC just checking in.
right.
I just said that. Maybe
Yeah,
a user on
yeah.
this might be something.
Okay.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, and we'll go back. Fred,
Yeah, I
apologize.
just want to follow up on what James said. Our team here, our custodial team, working with David, have done a great job of keeping our building clean and basically spraying every night. We've also put the ultraviolet lights in the ventilation system. So we feel like it's a safe place to be, but we have to be ready to pivot in a moment if things turn the other way. And one thing we are doing is our kids all have a device, either their own or one from the school. We're not taking them back up and putting them in laptop carts and cleaning them. They've got their device and it'll go with them until this thing's over. Because if we have to go home tomorrow and quarantine, we still want you to be able to remote for the 4 days waiting on your test, whatever it may be, or 14, if you're positive. So we're still trying to keep instruction as seamless as possible. To that effect, I wanted to ask David to share some things. He manages our website, and also just a little bit of update for the board about our security and what we're doing here to that end to keep our network safe and protect the information that we have to work with kids.
Yes, sir. Very quickly, several board members have reached out, and actually a few parents have reached out about data, network security, internet security at the facility. Our sister college, Greenville Tech, was basically shut down for about a week and a half because they lost network capacity. Pickens County also had an internal data network breach that shut them down in terms of their online. So first approach is all of our devices that we own are managed through a group policy security system, which means None of our teachers nor our students can install any software on any device without a supervisory password. The only folks that have supervisory passwords in the organization are Victor and myself. So the first thing they can't do is can't install software without our knowledge. We also use the Microsoft endpoint manager servers to manage all devices while they're outside of the facility. So we run Windows Defender proactively. It lets me know if it detects malware, any types of penetrations or anything, and it will bring that device in. Another thing that we are doing is we have partnered with ADT Cybersecurity. We've installed network monitoring software within the facility. What happened at Pickens County was everybody's bringing their own devices. They had a sufficient number of devices that were doing a direct denial of service inside of the building. So what ADT Cybersecurity does is it allows us to monitor traffic. So when a child brings in a device that may be infected with something and it starts doing something suspicious, it emails me immediately. I have and both administrators will tell you that when we first brought this in, we were getting between 30 and 50 alerts a day. We have been proactively shutting down any device that is setting off any type of alerts. We are instructing the students to come see us, and we have actually helped students remove malware and whatnot. The other thing that we are doing is we have integrated within our firewall proxy web filtering. So when the children go out with our Chromebooks or their PCs, it actually, when they try to do web filtering, it points them back to the building. So we are monitoring what they are doing outside on their own. The final thing is most of our data that is private data, what would be considered FERPA data, is protected because it's cloud-based. PowerSchool is not in the building. It is a server that is controlled by the state district. Our students and our parents have to log in remotely. So even if we were to have an attack here, our data is not here. I do daily backup of all of our servers. We do cross backup between Hyper-V, basically virtual servers, so that if we were to get an attack, I have a backup of all of our devices. I've done the same thing similarly with our website. Our website is now a WordPress hosted GoDaddy website that, if you'll now notice, is now using security certificates. So it's no longer HTTP, it's HTTPS, which gives us encrypted data, which also helps us with things like secure donation and any types of transactional information going on. I'm backing that up. It has monitoring. So if there are denial attacks, if there are penetration attacks against our website, it sends me an email. So we have daily backup of the websites. We have a monthly download backup of the website. So in the event that something were to happen to GoDaddy, I could upload our website as it were. We've been working pretty proactively over the past month simply because our website traffic is up substantially. We're getting between 1,500 and 2,000 hits a day because parents are going to the website. We're constantly posting information. The website's designed so that current information, depending on the area, will have a post slider. If you look at the bottom of our website, any types of weekly or monthly events that are going on that are significant are posted at the bottom of the main website. In addition, we've done the same thing with athletics. So if you go to the athletics, you'll see anything going on with men's basketball, girls basketball. We've just done that with guidance. We've added that feature with guidance, and we keep adding those types of features and functionality as we're going. To date, since we moved to the new format, I don't think we've had any issues with any types of inappropriate posts, inappropriate information that's popping up. Pop-up ads are gone. There are 3 of us that have access to the website on campus. I do the primary work, but I also have Mr. Brilliant, who's a backup. In case something were to happen to me, he has an account, and Victor also has access. So by minimizing access, controlling who can do what, so far we've been very fortunate. We have not had any downtime in terms of internet access or synchronous streaming within the building. We've had one parent that did have an issue. About 2-3 weeks ago, we think it was their end of it. We have provided mobile hotspots to several teachers and students. We're monitoring that. The hotspots seem to be working appropriately. So in terms of our network security and our website security, I feel like we're so far, literally knock on wood, we have been good. And now we're adding more kids back into the building, so we'll be knock on something. We've gone from, we were at 200 children in the building with 400 devices for 4 weeks. Now we're going to 300 children. They're going to have their own mobile device. They're probably going to have their phone. So we'll be up around 550, 600 active devices at any given time on any given day. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Right now we're at 140 mobile devices that have been issued to students. Depending on the level of juniors and seniors are getting a little better devices. So right now we're pretty good. Mr. Crawford told me today that I have to come up with 102 working devices for
Testing.
they mandated testing in 3 weeks. So
Yeah.
we'll get that done, but we're going to make certain our students have what they need. I promise you that.
Yeah. Well, we have using the laptop carts, which we've got most of that, all of it's issued, or it's in the classrooms. If you have to clean it each time. So we felt it was easier, and we're just going to stay with the kids keep their device rather than us having to clean between, each use, each class. Yeah, right. And anyway, to that end, David, thank you for all you do. Appreciate it. One other thing to share with you today is last Tuesday, I met with our attorneys concerning the lawsuit with the high school league, along with 28 others. And we had a mediation meeting this morning at 10 o'clock. And some things have changed as of today, which for the better. Number one, they had stated they were going to impose a penalty on anyone who actually participated this year as a ninth grader that should be sitting out with the rule changes, or a transfer student, that it'd be retroactive if the court upheld, the rule as it's written, then they would have to sit out the next year. They've rescinded on that. They're not going to do it, and they're not going to fine the school if we have one of these players. They could fine us $500 for each player. So they've rescinded all of that through mediation this morning. They also are looking to come up with some new language in their bylaws. And there's going to be a committee of us working together on both sides, and hopefully have something on the table that'll go to the membership in January. And if we can get something that we feel is good for kids, for both parties, then the lawsuit will go away. Mediation will solve it. Otherwise, we'll stay the course. The big issue has to do with the attendance issues. Right now, we're assigned Greer High as our attendance zone. And if you come to us in the ninth grade and you're from that zone, you're eligible. So we've got so many other kids coming from so many other places, and they would be ineligible and have to sit out a year. Or if you transfer in as a sophomore, you've been on our wait list a year and a half, and you come in, you're going to have to sit out a year again. A calendar year, not just this semester, next semester. If you come in second semester, it's a calendar year. So anyway, right now, they've changed that, at least verbally, that they're going to go back to the inter-district transfer, which is what we did before, which if you're in Greenville County, then you will be given, eligibility, which is better. That's what we've been doing. If you're out of county, they're probably going to flag it, and there's going to be a meeting. And part of this has happened because of, in particular, 3 schools that are just athletic schools, and they're stressing athletics, and that's what they're charged about. And they're recruiting kids from all over state. And so that's where the pushback is coming from other members of the high school league, but some of it with private schools as well. And so we're trying to find some mechanism that will keep us where we've been and do no harm, no worse than what we were doing before. What's that? No, if you have a bona fide move of address, as long as you're in Greenville County, you're good. But we do have 1 student from Pickens. We've got 9 or so from Spartanburg. So those would be the problems, and they would have to probably, I would say a hardship would have to appeal to the league committee. And
What about, why isn't there a challenge to these other charter schools that are going around and they're just simply, you know, sports and schools that, why isn't there a push to go after their charter?
well, that's what the league is. I mean, the charter law is different than the league of bylaws. South Carolina High School League has their own bylaws. And how that happens, you've got probably the top 50 schools out of 280 something. They get a weighting, meaning if you're Goose Creek or James Island or Wando, they may get 2.5 votes where we only get a half a vote. So based on your membership. So in turn, we're at a disadvantage, and anything we put on the table, really, they just don't understand the bigger picture. And I think that's what creates the problem. But you say, who would go after them? They're not violating their charter. Their charter was drawn up to allow that. So it's the league. And if the league wanted to, basically, they could ban them from the league. I mean, they do have that. The membership could. But there's two different things. You got two different entities. So charter law, their charters were granted. This is what they say they're going to be. I don't know if you remember when Deion Sanders had football school in Texas that went under, but it was the same thing. It was for, you know, what you say, Division I athletes, or they think they're going to be. And we've got 3 schools now and another one being planned to do the same thing. And they may be specialized in, you know, multiple sports, or it may just be one. So again, that's, you know, as I say, it's not, South Carolina law and charter law allowed it. They've been approved. As long as they're meeting the conditions of their charter and they're performing academically, they can do it. Now the league's the one has the problem in the membership, because what's happening, a lot of the schools are losing those, I'll call it blue chip athletes, going to those programs, and they're not happy about it, which you could understand. So active recruiting. We didn't create it, but we're caught in the crossfire. That's the best way I can state it.
So like Great Collegiate, their charter allows them to be
Magnets for athletics.
managed for athletics, and they get the same funding that we get.
Yep, they sure do. Sure do. Most of them do a half a day online instruction is how they're doing it. And then they have the rest of it is athletics. I mean, yeah. So whether you like it or not, that's where it is. And the pushback, which I think you can understand, you know, the bigger picture, why, you know, some of the schools aren't real pleased when their best athletes or quarterbacks or, you know, tackles, whatever, or knowing they're going to Clemson or going to somewhere else, or now transferring, not in their 9th grade year. If they go in their 9th grade year, I think most of them are fine with that. But when they're going their sophomore, junior, and senior year, that's where the other schools are really having a problem. And because the way the language was written and the bylaws and passed last year, it basically threw us out with everybody as well. So hopefully we can, through mediation, we'll be able to get it where it needs to be.
Thank you, Fred. Keep monitoring that, and I hope there's a compromise.
Yeah. Well, and got to be willing.
It all works for everybody.
Yeah. The other thing too, and I think, John, you're going to probably talk a little more about the status of our property with Tech and what's going on there. Just a couple important dates. Of course, you know, the election's the 5th, but the real important was what I talked about earlier with open enrollment underway now, ends October 30th, and the lottery will be the 12th. So I just, again, can't say it enough. Encourage you to anybody that comes to you or thinking about it. We're going to do all we can to get the word out, social media and otherwise. So, Yep. So, and that's pretty much what I've got. We do have a guest on, and probably with John coming up, our auditor. So, and to share some there, but that's pretty much my report unless anyone's got any more questions.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciate it. I just want to say for my report, because a lot of my things are in other people's report. I'm not sure, parents, I hope you do realize now how blessed you are to have your kids here and the fine job that this staff has done to deal with the COVID-19 and all of the
Can't hear anything if anybody's talking.
I don't think anyone is. Donna, you want me to go? Ken, do you want to go ahead and do the audit report?
I'll be happy to. Can you
I-
hear me?
I can. I
Yeah, I
think
can hear you, Ken.
I don't hear them at all and don't see them anymore.
I don't either. It may be just you and us.
I don't know what happened there or what is happening.
I'm not sure.
John, and sure, go ahead in the auditor.
Okay, we're gonna have Ken go ahead and give the audit report.
Okay, good, thank you.
Can you all
Okay.
hear me okay now? Am I coming through there for the main group?
Hear you, can y'all hear him?
I'll bring him back up right here. Takes me a minute. I got it right here.
I can hear you. I don't know if I'm coming through to you now.
All right, John, I think we got you now if you want to go.
Okay, well, Ken's gonna go ahead and give the report first, and then I'll follow up with the brief financial report.
Okay, very good. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. We did, again this year, perform an audit following generally accepted auditing standards and governmental auditing standards. Those standards guide us in all aspects of the audit, but the most fundamental point is that we gather enough independent audit evidence that we can give our opinion on the financial statements. So the focus of the audit is gathering independent audit evidence, enough of that to support an opinion. In our preliminary planning, we work through and we plan what our approach is going to be to the audit. And our plan was to take a very similar approach to what we've done in previous years. I should point out to you that our governing body, which is the American Institute of CPAs, has come out with guidance that suggests that as auditors are working with nonprofits and governmental entities, they should consider whether this whole coronavirus situation poses a special audit risk as you're working with those entities, primarily for two reasons. One, because of the disruption starting in February, March to financial operations. Their concern is that the structure of internal controls could have broken down during that period, which would make it more possible, would make it possible for irregularities to happen that might not have happened in the past. And then secondly, of course, the whole situation has had a real financial impact on nonprofits and governmentals, some more than others, but their concern is that to the extent organizations are relying on contributions and other enrollment-driven revenues, that they could have been really hurt, and therefore that could put them in a situation where, because of financial concerns, because of real pressures there, organizations might do some things, might take some actions that they otherwise would not be tempted to do. So the AICPA has told us as auditors, as you audit these organizations, consider that as a special audit risk and audit them in such a way that you address that risk. And so we did that. The first thing we look at always, and we focused on it again this year, was your system of internal controls. And we've reported to the board before that we feel like you've got a strong functioning system in place. And really the fact of the matter is that your system that you have in place, you didn't devise it for this reason, but it is beautifully structured for just such a situation as we're facing now. And that is the remote situation where folks aren't necessarily at the school. With your relationship with Copper Advisors and their interaction with your folks there at the school, you already had a really strong system in place to do much of the accounting and the financial side remotely. And so as we looked at that and as we tested it, we feel like the system was working exactly as it should be. We didn't find any issues, even with the unusual times we're in, where there were cases where Rosemary would not be able to come in and was having to work remotely, and other people. But because you had your system set up, it functioned as it should, and we feel like you had a strong system of control even during this time. We then moved to what I call routine audit tests. Again, we're trying to test and gather evidence to give our opinion. And again, the way we tested this year was somewhat different in that we actually worked more remotely during the audit than we normally do. And that probably meant more work for Rosemary and more work for the folks at Copper Advisors, but they did a superb job of giving us the information we needed, and we were able to do all the testing that we needed to do, and gathered the evidence that we needed to, and we're able to give, again, this year, an unmodified opinion on your financial statements. That's commonly called a clean opinion. It's the best opinion we can give you, that your financial statements do present fairly the results of your operations. So our report on internal controls is a strongly positive one. You've got a great system in place and it's functioning well. Our report on the financials themselves is an unmodified opinion, a clean one. And then we like to give you some sense of more of a qualitative look. We're not required to do that, but because we're here working, we want to give the board some sense, the quality of your people, the quality of the accounting process and system. And I can tell you that we continue to be very impressed with both the folks you have there at the school, Rosemary, and the folks that help her do a great job day by day. And then in their relationship with Copper Advisors, those folks are experienced and have the expertise they need to do a really good job. We assess that in a variety of ways. For instance, we look at the number of adjustments we have to make. There are schools that we go into where we may end up with the financial statements being fairly presented, but in order to get there, we've got to make 55 journal entries to clean it up. And that tells the board something when we have to do that. And I can tell you, we don't have to make any adjustments where we're correcting a mistake. There are a few adjustments we make that they wait until we're here for the audit and work with us to make just a couple of adjustments, kind of reclass entries. But basically, what we come away with is the work is being done very well on a day-to-day basis, really a transaction by transaction basis, so that when we come in for the audit, we're not making adjusting entries. We're not correcting mistakes. And that speaks a lot to the quality of the work that's going on. So our report, our qualitative report, would also be very, very positive. That's quick and dirty explanation of what the process was. Does that raise any questions about just, I will talk about the actual financial results, but did that raise any questions with what our process was or what we found?
Sounds wonderful to me.
When it gets through,
He's got to present it, yeah.
John will do it. It'll be a motion. We'll just move on.
Go ahead, Ken. I think the consensus room is good and move forward.
Okay, let me go ahead and just spend a few minutes then talking about the actual financial results. And I don't know if you have access currently to the actual financials, but I'll just talk through briefly, just point out a couple things. This year, our total revenue was $5,265,000. That was up about $200,000 from last year, about 4% over last year. And that followed an increase of about 12% the year before. So what we're seeing there is continued growth, driven somewhat by the headcount, but also by some increased funding for EFA. But we do like to see, for the stability of the school, we like to see ongoing revenue growth, and we think that it was good that you continue to show that increase. As you focus on, if you look at the bottom line, that is, and again, we understand the purpose of the school is not to make money, but if you're not adding to your net assets over time, you're not adding to your financial strength. You're not, and therefore you don't have the ability then to take on new challenges, to invest in the property. And so we focus on how much of that $5.2 million in revenue you're able to bring to the bottom line. This year, if you don't consider what we spent in the ongoing capital project, our bottom line was a positive $175,000. As a comparison, last year was about 900,000. The year before that, about 600,000. So again, what we focus on is kind of a long view, and going back even 6 years, five years, excuse me, we've had increases every year. What that tells us is that you all are budgeting in such a way and then operating in such a way that you're living within your means and you're adding to that fund balance. Again, you've been able to do a lot of work, of course, on the facility and your campus, and you would not have been able to do that without having built a fund balance that would allow you to borrow the money and then service that debt over time. So we commend you for a series of years of operating in such a way, budgeting and operating in such a way that you're able to increase that fund balance. So again, this year, have a nice increase. Where that leaves you, you've got unrestricted fund balance of just over $2 million. And that's about 40% of your annual expenses. So we've talked before that we suggest that a charter school should have a minimum of 15%, and then on up 40% is especially for a charter school is a very reasonable level. You may be aware that if you drop down to a certain level, the state starts working with you more carefully, and you're well above that. That's 8.5%. So you're well above that. But we think that level you're at is a good solid base, and should stand you in good stead going forward as you have ongoing projects, ongoing opportunities. Any questions for that?
Yeah. Do we have any questions for the auditor? John, is your motion on the floor to accept the auditor's report?
It is.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Doesn't require a second.
Well, then we won't.
No, it didn't come from committee. Never mind.
Okay. You're staying correcting me. Thank you.
No. It needs a second. I'm sorry.
Yes. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. John, would you give us the financial report?
I
please?
will. Thank you, Ken, very much for that excellent report.
Thank you.
So August was a good month. Cash balances were 3.84 million. Total equity 4.895 million. So that's balance sheet looked good. Revenue and expenses. Total income for July was $525,000 against a budget of $395,000. That's good. Expenses were about $450,000 versus a budget of $390,000, but all of that worked out to a net gain of $76,000 versus a budget of $5,000. So that's about 148% favorable. So that's pretty good. Revenue was up because enrollment was higher than what we had budgeted. We budgeted fairly conservatively. And so that also caused personnel expense to be higher. And career and technical education revenue was much higher. So kids are participating in some of the career programs, which is really good. On the expense side, technical supplies and software was up due to some of the virtual learning things that had to be done. If you'll remember, we have about $489,500 in PPP funds from the government. We have fulfilled our obligation to those funds. We've expended them. In fact, we expended them at about week 18. So they are working with the bank to put in an application for forgiveness of that loan. And it's thought that probably mid to late October, we should have that roll into our financials. The committee also discussed a loan that some other charter schools were doing. You get somewhere around 150,000 at 2.75 APR over 30 years. But we decided our cash position was good enough at this point that we didn't need to take on any debt. And so that loan is available till December. Should something change between now and December, we can take another look at it. But otherwise, we're good. And we have about almost 300 days of cash on hand, which is a pretty good position to be in. So that's my report, Madam Chairman.
That stands as a motion. All those in favor of accepting the financial report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, John. Wonderful audit, and thank you for a good financial report. I'd like to hear the report, please, from facilities. John Short.
Hey there. Hopefully you got my email a little bit with most of the high points of what we're looking at. What we're finishing up on the gym is the safety and security issues. We still do have an outstanding issue with the fencing between the two buildings to restrict access. The architect has finally, as of Friday, given us a proposal. So that is going to be out for pricing to see how that works out. It shouldn't be a big number because it's basically working with what we currently had. They're just going from a 36-inch gate to a 42-inch gate, or maybe in a 48-inch gate, just to be oversized. But it has to have a panic bar on it, which we didn't have that on the last design. So we'll be working on how to secure that. But as far as the gym activities, I mean, the gym's been used. We've had volleyball games in the gym, and of course, all the classrooms are being used, and PE classes are going. And it's been really neat to see all that come to play with the gym. We did have a meeting with Greenville Tech and the representative here last month about the development of or securing more land for the soccer field, baseball field, and field house, however that shakes out to be. They're requesting us to come up with some design ideas and design plans, really getting back to securing about how many acres that they would need to give us a long-term lease to. As everybody's aware of, think of that the school itself and the gym is on leased property that's owned by Greenville Tech, and there is a process that has to be gone through the state and through their procurement process all the way to the state procurement office that has to agree to it. And I think that's who has to agree to it. So hopefully that process is occurring. But within that process, we have to do some preliminary drawings and some not necessarily bidding in the process, but really getting just to see how much acreage and how things will lay out. There is a proposal from Stonecutters, who is a parent that used to work for L3P Architects. We had a proposal for them, but they requested us to go through Stonecutters. But he is a parent of a kid here. But the civil engineer is not a parent, but that's the most critical person to get on board right now. And the little bit of checking that I've been able to do on him, he is very favorable with Greenville County, unlike our previous civil engineer. So that process should be able to go a little bit quicker, hopefully. There is a proposal that you have. It outlines sort of the scope of work as well as the cost of $6,000. That would be something that we would need to be doing, and that should include any surveys, any type of it may include, depending on how much design work it takes, but it actually include the boring of the soil, which is so it should be all the field tests to give a preliminary design to where we can go to other builders and say this is what we're wanting to do, and then from that point to do a design build to you'll go back to, Roebuck Builders and Sossman's, and there's several others that are very interested, but we'll open that process once we have the framework that Stonecutters is wanting to propose. So I need a motion to,
We can have a motion or we can have discussion before.
or discussion, excuse me,
Either way. Any questions for John?
It's probably going to be less than that. They've already been doing some preliminary design. They know the lay of the land, and so once they get the approval, then they're willing to get started this week on that. So it should be a 30 to 40 day process. So. Right. I mean, my hope is, and I think is just like we did with the gym, to get everything that we can on that piece of property, be it the soccer fields with the track, the official 8-lane track to go around, and all the track amenities to be able to pole vault, to do everything there, and then have a field house in between, and then a baseball field. And so, of course, the baseball field would be baseball, softball. We just have to have the temporary wall, fence and all that. Right.
And actually moving from the first proposed site where it is now is actually better.
Much better. In fact, it's more attractive. We want to see our building first and then our facility.
Right.
Athletics behind.
I think too, it'll be a little more secure as well.
Yeah. Because it's going to be on the left. So if you're looking at the school, it's going to be on the left of the school. So basically where the old administrative building was with the portables, that's going to be all parking and everything right there. Then the fields will start, from there back. Greenwood Tech. Yeah, our current lease is a 99-year lease that was signed 6 years ago. So I mean, it's the longest that they can go out on the lease, and the hope is that they will then just piggyback on our current lease, or actually renew the 99 years. But we'll be in discussions with Greenwood Tech about that. So, but they are needing something from us to say this is what it looks like. Yeah. But it's been a very favorable. I mean, the initial response from the board was very favorable. There was a few questions that were asked, but it was more of settling, well, what is it? And so that's what we got to answer to them now. Right.
I have a question, like, as far as, obviously we're a smaller school, but an athletic school. What kind of revenue do you feel like, because some of the parents, are you going to get pushed back on the amount of money we're spending on athletic facilities based on the number of kids enrolled?
Well, I think that's a very valid point, but I think the point where I would start is that it's a safety and security issue. That if we're having to travel a lot, which we are currently having to travel to do anything that's off-site, anything with fields, and then when we do that, I know there was some issues with the baseball team a couple weeks ago. They showed up to practice and they thought they had practice fields, and then they get bumped by another school. And it's those kind of things. So when we have our kids driving themselves to baseball practice or to a soccer field and do practice, I think that's where we've got to make it, and unfortunately we've had a lot of bad issues in the newspapers and the press, of kids having horrible accidents in cars. And I think the more we can have that here on campus and limit the liability of the school when that occurs, I think that's.
Plus it's needed for the instructional program in PE, because we have another green area to go to. We've got a gym now. We've got the rough terrain out here, that end, so it will help in other areas as well.
I think the value of selling it also is the fact that our academics will not go lacking for athletics. But I think it's a marriage and a combination that will even make both stronger.
Definitely, because when we built the gym, we put classrooms in the arts there. So what we're showing wasn't just an athletic facility, it was a dual functional facility, which
And I think with what I'm calling, or what Fred and I have talked about, and Don have talked about, the field house. I mean, we could put classrooms in there if that's needed. If we need some, other, now that we are having 500 students in school, do we need to have another 2 or 3 classrooms that are over there that, to be able to spread the population out some? Do we need, what does it need be a building just for storage, or is it, because with any of those, things, with the fields and everything, you're going to have, storage and those kind of things. And then within the scope that we'll be looking at is what is the cost to maintain it for, year to year, and that kind of stuff will be addressed too.
I think it's a valid point though, and I'm glad you brought it up. I think it's the story and how we tell the story, and we show the value and the benefit to all the students. And I think parents would embrace it. That would be my-
Well, and I mean, cross country and track are our two biggest sports, and
And volleyball.
all the way to Northwest and,
And they get scholarships for college from
keep
it.
as much as we can on the side as grants.
It's a home run for.
right. And I think just like our audit said before, I mean, we have good, return on our current faculty and staff and what they're doing, and we just need to enhance the whole school. So we're not going without on the education side either, which is the primary reason why we're all here. So
And, the number we have and have to wait list, look at all of that, it's been a positive. We talk about, you got to do some financing or refinancing, whatever, for that. And I think the more amenities and things we can do. And I really think what we've done with the furniture in this building, and other things, we give it a little more upscale look, more collegiate. I'll say that. And I really think there'll be some other auxiliary, we're not having to pay to use somebody else's gym this year. We've got practice times we can control. There'll probably be sometimes other groups we might want to work with the community or the, area rec or whatever. There will be some opportunities to actually generate some revenue too. To offset some.
Do we have to ever pay for any fields when we go have to use them, not having our own?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. So we would not be spending that money.
I would want to see security for the students, because right now, when I'm done school, we have athletic, there's a time between it, there's nowhere to go, nothing to do. Now we really can direct them to. Well, and you can even do intramurals.
That's right.
and it just opens up so many other avenues for other. Yeah. Well, and there have been some, students that are, that don't come because we don't have, fields and those kind of things. Not that we're a sports school, but I mean, we're competitive, and cross country team, state champions, and
The arts program now, that's slowly getting finished with their amphitheater, and we will have access to it. So they've already said that. We do use the upper field some for practice and PE, but again, the distance and time, every time we do that, it's a security issue.
yeah, I mean, it's just, and the more we can control that and have the kids accountable for times that they're not, I think that's,
And driving practice and all of those things.
yeah, we've been very fortunate and blessed that we haven't had issues with that, but.
I mean, when you're looking at, you said, some initial scaling, talk about the field house, or maybe for locker rooms and things like that.
Sure, right.
You don't have it here.
Right.
Two sports in one.
Right.
So if you were coming in for your, say, your soccer, your track meet, there'd be a place to change and all that.
Right.
Right there.
Sure. Right. Yeah. So there, I mean, it'd be,
You don't want to see like Christ Church has a basic field house. Yeah.
right. Yeah. I mean, but we got to be able to, hold the equipment. We got to hold, but also have, locker rooms and yeah. Right. I mean, and that's where the question is, I think, is sort of feeling out, how we've, because, I guess when we sort of designed the gym, we weren't sure if we were going to use the classrooms. Well, they got swallowed up really quick, I mean,
Soccer teams, those soccer teams that we have here, they play on a high school field, and they're paying a price for that. Yeah, so I mean, there may be options that you have other people.
We could get revenue.
Right.
I think it's a
They
great.
put in
Yeah.
stands to see 3,500 people across the school.
Is there any other questions for John Short? on
Well,
facilities?
I do have the bus.
I'm sorry.
So the bus is,
Well, you want to do this and get a vote?
okay. Oh, sorry. So is there any discussion about that?
Yeah, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, that is, you want to tell them what the price is for that amount?
The
For the-
$6,000.
Yes. $6,000 fee for the engineering layout, am I correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is your motion, and I don't have to have a second. It comes from your committee. All those in favor of moving forward with the engineering on the outfields for our athletics, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. Go ahead, John.
Okay. And the last thing is our school bus that we purchased last year. We had issues with that. getting it certified and everything. Will in the current inspection this year, it was pointed out to us by the inspector that our bus is not a eligible bus under South Carolina law, under Jacob's law. And so we have lettered the bus and we have put the bus out there, and it goes back to the windows on the bus, in which the people that we bought the bus from, they stood behind it until they did their research, and they found out that windows were cut in where it brings into a safety security issue. That was our issue in the beginning because they didn't have the sensors, but they didn't, and we did not know this until it was inspected by a different inspector this year, and they noticed that there was 2 different tags that were inside the bus. So having said that, we have contacted, David has contacted National Bus Sales, and they are wanting to switch out school buses. Now the question is how the structure that comes out. It is a school bus. I don't know if you can see my fancy picture here, but there's the bus, and then it will still have the captain's chairs like our current bus does. It will hold 48 to where our current one holds 50, I think, or 40. I think it's 2 seats. It's 2 seats either way. But David is going to be in communication with them tomorrow, and we are going to negotiate with them about the transfer of the bus and them bringing us the new bus. So
Is the year the same year as ours?
it's a newer bus and fewer miles. So I mean, they're saying that it is a more expensive bus, and I'm like, you sold us a bus that you legally can't sell us, so it's really your issue, not ours. So we're going to look at them, we're going to go back to them about a cost that we have put into the bus as well as the wrapping cost, and we're going to be asking them to pay those costs, and we will see how that shakes out. But they, and also they've got to move very fast. So we're going to give them a time of in the next 2 weeks, the new bus needs to be delivered. So they can bring the new bus to us and drive the old bus back to them.
And we want that timeline so we can schedule with the wrapping, because I want that thing wrapped so
Right.
we can use it.
Right, so it is a big yellow bus, but it's
That's right.
so that's, yeah, but it meets the safety requirements, and that goes back to all the discussion where we're coming from facilities. It's always about the safety and security of our kids and having the best that they can have for their protection.
Anything else?
That's all I have, but just bring up to date on the bus.
All that you
So
do, you're amazing. Now we're going to go to the area on policy and government. Ready to go?
That's good. We're almost at the end, guys. All right, the Policy and Governance Committee has worked with, well, I'll wait on John. I want to thank very much for Janice Clark, Heather Jimenez, and David Gann for helping us get all the information out there. Got that, John? In computers and facilities, I love it. All right. For the GMC Director's election nominations, there's 11 candidates who were interested in on the board positions. 3 of the candidates submitted their application too late, beyond the September 18th, 5 p.m. deadline. Therefore, by the bylaws, they were deemed unable to be accepted. Currently, there are 6 board seats available with 4 elected positions and 2 appointed. The candidates for October elections are Elliot Figueroa, Lisa Frick, Jennifer Jones, Lori Larson, Allison Murthy, thank you, Pauline Nickel, John Short, and Matt Williams. Thank you to everyone who has put the candidates in. On September 28th, we had our virtual Fun Without a Hitch. We finally got that done, which is great. And you said you did record that, David? Okay, so we'll be able to post that in case you want to review, and all the bios are on the website currently right now. On October 5th, we're looking at having the ballots go out, be emailed to all eligible parents for voting. The election will be closed on October 6th at 9 a.m. Election results will be available by noon. I'm hoping by noon, September 7th. It's gone by our numbers, and we will have them posted. The top 4 candidates receiving the most ballots for the 4 board seats will be for the GMC board will be sworn in on October 26th, and the other 2 terms ending in November 1st. We'll start their term on November 1st, 2020.
Right now, we're just waiting. Jamie, I would like to ask to get with you, please, that we can go with the Paramount Education Survey to maybe get this out for all the eligible people. I'd like to have it preloaded. I do have my login working, so if we can have it ready to go, and then we can just push the button on Monday, that'd be much easier. So Jamie, if I'll set a time up with you and email you and say, what can you show me what you've learned already, which really would be helpful. All right? And that is what I like to have. It's my word. I thank you for the help I had very much. That's it.
We done?
Can't hear anybody.
We done?
Can't hear anybody except for John.
Fred, are we done? Fred, you're muted. He'd be muted.
Well, thank you, Heather.